Welcome to Search the Scriptures. Today we are on study number 13 in the book of 2 Samuel, and this covers chapter 19, beginning with the 9th verse all the way through the end of the chapter as we look at David returning back to the city of Jerusalem. Some interesting things happen along the way. A couple different questions. Why did David not make an immediate re-entry into the capital? And how does his attitude contrast with that of Saul and other leaders in the same mold? And second, what qualities in David stand out in his treatment of Shimei, Mephibosheth, and Barzillai? And what can be learned from the attitude of each of these men to David? Well, let's look at the story here in 2 Samuel, beginning in chapter 19 and the 9th verse. Throughout the tribes of Israel, all the people were arguing among themselves, saying, "The king delivered us from the hand of our enemies. He's the one who rescued us from the hand of the Philistines. But now he's fled the country to escape from Absalom. And Absalom, whom we anointed to rule over us, has died in battle. So why do you say nothing about bringing back the king?" King David sent this message to Zadok and Abiathar, the priests. "Ask the elders of Judah, why should you be the last to bring the king back to his palace, since what is being said throughout Israel has reached the king at his quarters? Are you my relatives, my own flesh and blood? So why should you be the last to bring back the king? And say to Amasa, are you not my own flesh and blood? May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if you are not the commander of my army, for life in place of Joab." And he went over the hearts of the men of Judah so that they were all of one mind. They sent word to the king, "Return, you and all your men." Then the king returned and went as far as the Jordan. Now the men of Judah had come to Gilgal to go out and to meet the king and to bring him across the Jordan. Shimei, son of Gera, the Benjamite from Bahurim, hurried down with the men of Judah to meet King David. With him were 1,000 Benjamites, along with Ziba, the steward of Saul's household, and his 15 sons and 20 servants. And they rushed to the Jordan where the king was, and they crossed at the ford to take the king's household over and to do whatever he wished. When Shimei, son of Gera, crossed the Jordan, he fell prostrate before the king and said to him, "May my lord the king not hold me guilty. Do not remember how your servant did wrong on the day my lord the king left Jerusalem. May the king put it out of his mind. For I, your servant, know that I've sinned, but today I've come here as the first from the tribes of Joseph to come down and to meet my lord the king." And when Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said, "Shouldn't Shimei be put to death for this? He cursed the Lord's anointed." And David replied, What does this have to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? What right do you have to interfere? Should anyone be put to death in Israel today? Don't I know that today I am the king over Israel?" So the king said to Shimei, "You shall not die." And the king promised him on oath. Mephibosheth's son's grandson also went down to meet the king. He had not taken care of his feet or trimmed his mustache or washed his clothes from the day the king left until the day he returned safely. And when he came from Jerusalem to meet the king asked him, "Why didn't you go with me, Mephibosheth?" And he said, "My lord the king, since I, your servant, am lame, I said, I'll have my donkey saddled and I will ride on it so I can come and be with the king. But Ziba, my servant, betrayed me. And he slandered your servant to my lord the king. And my lord the king is like an angel of God. So do whatever you wish. All my grandfather's descendants deserve nothing but death from my lord the king. But you gave your servant a place among those who ate at your table. So what right do I have to make any more appeals to the king?" And the king said to him, "Why say more? I order you and Ziba to divide the land." And Mephibosheth said to the king, "Let him take everything, now that my lord the king has returned home safely." And Barzillai the Gileadite also came down from Rajalim to cross the Jordan with the king and to send him on his way from there. Now Barzillai was very old, 80 years of age, and he had provided for the king during his stay in Mahanaim, for he was a very wealthy man. And the king said to Barzillai, "Cross over with me and stay with me in Jerusalem, and I will provide for you." But Barzillai answered the king, "How many more years will I live that I should go up to Jerusalem with my king? I'm now 80 years old. Can I tell the difference between what's enjoyable and what's not? Can your servant even taste what he eats and drinks? Can I still hear the voices of male and female singers? Why should your servant be an added burden to my lord the king? Your servant will cross over the Jordan with the king for a short distance, but why should the king reward me in this way? Let your servant return that I may die in my own town near the tomb of my father and mother. But here is your servant Kimham, which is possibly his son. Let him cross over with the Lord the king. Do for him whatever you wish. The king said, Kimham shall cross over with me, and I will do for him whatever you wish. And anything you desire from me, I will do for you. So all the people crossed the Jordan, and then the king crossed over, and the king kissed Barzillai and bid him farewell, and Barzillai returned to his home. Interesting stuff here. Let's look at question number 1. Why did David not make an immediate re-entry into the capital? And how does his attitude contrast with that of Saul and the other leaders in the same mold? That's a tricky question. I'm really not sure how I want to answer this, but let's just put it this way. It seems that David maybe wanted to make sure the coast was clear before he returned. He wanted to make certain that his return would not be without further damage and bloodshed in the kingdom of Israel. And it also may be not quite sure that he wanted to return in style. It's hard to say, really, with everything that's happened to David. It's hard to pinpoint where he's at right now. It's hard to pinpoint his true motivation. It's hard to pinpoint, for me anyway, what's going on. Perhaps it was a combination of all those things above. I mean, it does seem that David, like most of us, he wanted to be wanted. Didn't want to go where he wasn't wanted. If he was wanted, he wouldn't have minded too terribly much having an entourage. I don't think so. Anyway, I think he might have enjoyed that. Because that's what we do want after we've been defeated, after we've been beat down, after we've been chased out. We kind of want people to want us, and we want to be welcomed back with open arms. It seems that David right here at this point, I'm not sure what's going on with him. I'm not really sure about all of his decisions right now. Let's look at the second question. This will kind of highlight what I'm talking about. What qualities in David stand out in his treatment of Shimei, Mephibosheth, and Barzillai, and what can be learned from the attitude of each of these men to David? Well, when it comes to David's treatment of Shimei, Mephibosheth, and Barzillai, one can easily kind of be left scratching their head, you know? Take Shimei, for example. Is this story told to us to show us the depth of the forgiveness of King David, or the sad state of his leadership? I'm not really sure. It appears that once again David, it seems to me anyway, is embracing those that were bent on destroying him and rejecting those that love and protect him. I mean, he said to his commander, what do you have to do with this? This is none of your business. Remember, this is the same commander earlier when Shimei was cursing them when they were going in. He said, let me destroy him. David said, no, he's probably sent by God to do this. So I don't really get what's going on here. I mean, he rejects his commanders. He promises Joab's job to Amasa, which was Absalom's commander. And here he's forgiven a guy that was raining down curses on him. So I'm not sure David still has things right. I think we're seeing, since the sin of Bathsheba, some serious leadership flaws in David. In all honesty, I don't know what to make of all this. And my gut feeling is that David should have learned a thing or two and should have struck down Shimei on the spot. I mean, that happened in the past. That's who he was before Bathsheba. It just seems interesting to me. Okay, this guy cursed me, this guy abused me, and now he simply asked for forgiveness. I mean, he hasn't proven anything. And David says, yeah, no problem. I don't know. I honestly don't know what to think about this. As to Mephibosheth, I'm filled with some of the same kind of misgivings. When David finds out here that Ziba had deceived him, he offers to return half of what he'd promised to Ziba to Mephibosheth. Now, Ziba, remember, greeted David, had a string of donkeys, had a bunch of raisin cakes and food for David, and said, Mephibosheth is waiting. He thinks they're going to put him back in power now that you're gone, and all this kind of stuff. Now, Mephibosheth comes out here. His hair is not washed. His clothes aren't washed. His nails aren't taken care of. His mustache isn't trimmed. He looks a mess. And David says, why didn't you come out? He says, well, I didn't come out because nobody sat on my donkey. I couldn't. Ziba took the donkeys. He slandered me against you. He left me stuck there. And David gives Ziba back. Ziba the property, and now here David said, oh, I made a mistake, I'll give half of it back to you. Well, why? Why just half? I don't get why he just gives half. I don't get why Ziba is even breathing at this point if what's taking place here is true. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Did he not trust Mephibosheth? Did he not know who to believe? Now, a wise, a strong leader doesn't make decisions like this. Wise leaders take a stand, right or wrong, they take a stand. They make a decision, and they let things fall where they may. A big part of me sees what's happening here in David as he's crossing back into the Jordan. I think he's still got some leadership issues. Maybe he's handling things correctly. I really don't know. I'm torn as I read this. Now, as to his treatment of Barzillai, I think here all the credit really goes to Barzillai in my book. This guy, I wish there were more people like Barzillai in the kingdom today. I wish there were more people like Barzillai in the United States of America today. Here's the type of senior citizen that we need to be embracing. Here's a guy that isn't interested in being waited on hand and foot and saying, well, now it's my time for people to take care of me. No, that's not what's happening here. Instead, the opposite is happening. Barzillai says, I've had my time. Now let others receive the blessing. I think that our society, that older folks in our society right now in the United States of America, I think they could learn a great deal. And I think it's only going to get worse in our society is what our expectations are when we are older in life. And I think that our society can learn a great deal from this type of attitude that Barzillai had. I'm greatly concerned really about the attitude of many older Americans today. The burden that many are so willing to heap upon their grandchildren disturbs me tremendously. When it comes to the tremendous debt the United States is building up, and everybody thinking, well, I paid in and I have my right and I need to be able to quit at this age and I need to be able to stay at home and people need to take care of me and I deserve this, irregardless of the burden that places on children, on grandchildren, on great-grandchildren. I think we need more people in our society like Barzillai, and I'm thankful for the many Barzillai-type seniors that are still out there and that God has placed into my path, and I love them with everything that is within me. They are shining examples in an otherwise dark world of what I want to be like when I am in that stage in life. I'm afraid, however, that those type of people, those type of seniors are fewer and farther between. I hope to be one just like him. May God let me know when it's time to step aside, not to be waited on, but to step aside from the blessings, to step aside from receiving and begin to let others receive the blessings, let others begin to receive the praise. May I know when to decrease so that others might increase. I think David wisely so took this young man with him and left the older man to go back. I think that was a wise decision on David's part. I think it was a wise decision on Barzillai's part. I have a little misgivings about David not dealing more harshly with Ziba. I have a lot of misgivings about the situation with Shimei. I don't know if offering forgiveness like that was what David should have done in that moment, because I really have to question Shimei's motives here. But I don't know that David knew that, so David might have been acting in the right way. I don't know. That's why questions like these are good. That's why a study like this is good, because there are layers to things that we need to try to get to as we study God's Word. I hope this study today has been a blessing to you, and may God richly bless the rest of your day.